I'm sorry about that, you guys. I had a phone call to come in, and my son is crying. So the radius, once we broke down the square root of 18, square root of 9 times square root of 2, square root of 9 is 3, bring down the square root of 2. So you will have some radius where you're going to have to break down with your chart, okay? And this is the center radius form. Now let's see if we can go backwards. Meaning, I'm going to give you the center and the radius, and I want you to write the equation in that form. So if I said the center is 4, 3, and it has a radius of 5. Now to put it in the equation, you're going to use the opposite signs. So in the part with x, your x coordinate is positive 4. So you must have minus 4 in the h spot. Plus, in the y parenthesis, it says that your y coordinate is 3. But it must say minus 3 in the equation for the k spot. Equals, if the radius is 5, then now you square it, which will give you 25. Because in order to get a 5, you have to take the square root of 25. So my equation would be x minus 4 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 25. If you have the center of -6, +7, with a radius of 8, then my equation would be x plus 6, has to be opposite sign in the equation, squared, plus y minus 7, because it's positive, so it has to be minus, squared, equals, if my radius is 8, then I must have had a 64. 8 squared is 64. And that would be your equation. Okay, what if we were to have the center is -5, -1, and our radius is 2 square roots of 5. Okay? Now for our equation, you would have x plus 5 squared, because it's minus, so you need a plus, plus y plus 1 squared equals, now, you gotta think backwards. Now, you could square this, okay? But I want you to think about if I have a 2 on the outside, when we did our square roots, there must have been a 4 on the inside, because the square root of 4 gives you that 2. You follow me? So what is 5 times 4? 20. Okay? Now, if that's hard to see, you can square this. Okay? If you square 2, you get 4. If you square the square root of 5, it takes the house off and you just left with 5. And 4 times 5 is 20. So that you can do. You can square that, but you're going to do it in pieces. So that would be my equation. What if we had the center of 9, 0, and a radius of 2 square roots of 7. So our equation would be x minus 9 squared plus, if you got 0, that's just going to represent y squared. Equals, now again, if you got 2 square roots of 7, in order for me to have a 2, I must have had a 4. And 4 times 7 is 28. Or you can square that. 2 squared is 4. And when you square the square root of 7, you just have 7, which would give you 28. And that would be your equation. So we should be able to take the center radius form and pull out the center and the radius. And you should be able to take the center and the radius and write it in the center radius form. So it's kind of like going backwards. Now I'm going to show you the second form for circles, which is the general form. And it's a little bit more work to find that center and that radius. Now, that's the general form for a circle, okay? This is going to be known as your general form, okay? Now, in the general form, I want to make it look like the center radius form, because when it's in that form, I can easily pick out that center and the radius. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a method called completing the square. You're going to do completing the square for the x side and for the y side. So what I'm going to do is put my variables of like together. So I'm going to have my x squared plus 6x together. Now I'm going to do a bubble. You can do a circle, a box, a square. You need a space here that you're going to put a number. This will represent my x side. Your y side, you're going to put your y's together, starting with the y squared. So plus y squared plus 8y and a bubble. I really wrote too big. Equals. Now all whole numbers, constant numbers, need to go to the other side of the equals. So you only have 1 plus 9. But when you move it, it's going to become a negative. Signs are going to change. So I got minus 9 on the right side of the equal. Now, because this is an equation, and if you have 2 bubble spaces on the left, I'm going to need 2 bubble spaces on my right. Okay? So in other words, they go together. Whatever I put in this space, I put in this space. Whatever I put in this space, I put in that space. Because it's an equation. You got to keep it balanced. So whatever you do to one side, you got to do to the other side. Okay? Now we're going to take this in terms of x and in terms of y. Your main focus is that middle term. So I'm going to take half of 6. Half of 6 is 3. And then you're going to square it. 3 squared is 9. So I need to put plus 9 on both sides of the equal. So be in the first 2 spaces on each side. Now what did I do? I took half of the middle term. Half of 6 is 3. And then you square it. That gives me 9. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the y. Half of 8 is 4. 4 4 squared is 16. So you're going to put 16. And you see I'm putting plus. You're going to be adding always on both sides. So I want to just put that sign there so you'll know what operation you're going to be doing. You're adding. So all of your bubbles, your spaces, your circles, whatever you got, they're going to have plus with the number. So what I did here, again, I took half of 8, which gives me that 4. And then I square it, which gives you 16. Okay? So you have completed the bubbles. Now you're going to take the x's and y's separately. I need a parenthesis squared that shows the factoring of that x term. And I'm going to do a parenthesis squared that shows the factoring of the y terms. Equal to a number. Now you should see this will make this be in the center radius form. Now if you don't want to look at this as factoring, okay, I need you to know that what you put in these two parentheses are going to be the same variable, the same sign, and half of the middle term. Now what I mean by factoring is you got these 3 terms, this trinomial. If I was to factor this into 2 parentheses, you would have x at the front of both, and then factors of 9 that's going to add and give you a 6 would be 3 and 3. 3 plus 3 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, and both of them would be positive. So you would have the same parenthesis twice. So in this parenthesis, it must say x plus 3. I have x plus 3 2 times. That's the factor form of the x side. Now, if you don't want to look at this as factoring, if that throws you off, remember what I'm saying. Same variable, same sign, and half of 6 is 3. That's what goes, or the square root of 9 is 3. It's going to give you the same number. Do the same thing for the y. You're going to do y, same sign as plus. Half of 8 is 4. The square root of 16 is 4. But that would have been y plus 4 squared if I factored that. And then you add those 3 numbers together. Negative 9 plus 9 cancels. And you're just left with 16. So, ta-da, you're in your center radius form. The center would be negative 3 and a negative 4. And my radius would be 4. The square root of 16 is 4. Okay, let's look at another example. What if we were to do x squared plus y squared minus 12x plus 10y equals negative 25. So the very first step is you're going to group your x's together and group your y's together with a bubble. So you're going to have x squared minus 12x and a bubble. You're going to do y squared plus 10y and a bubble. Equals, now my number is already over there, so you're good. Leave it there. Negative 25, but I'm going to put 2 bubbles on this side. So now I'm going to take half of the middle, square it to put on both sides. Now I did not say this on the last example, but you do not use the signs when you do half squared, because my bubbles are going to always be positive. That sign has to be in that parenthesis though, okay? But right now, all my bubbles are positive. So I'm just looking at 12, not negative 12. So half of 12 is 6. 6 6 squared is 36. So you're going to put positive 36 on both sides. Do the same with my y. My 10, half of 10 is 5. 5 squared is 25. So I'm going to put plus 25 on both sides. So with my x, you're going to do a parenthesis squared. And with your y, you're going to do a parenthesis squared. And it's going to be equal to a number. Now for my x, you're going to do x, same sign, minus half of 12 is 6. For my y, we're going to do y, same sign, plus, and half of 10 is 5. And then you're going to add these three together. Negative 25 plus 25 will cancel out. So you're left with 36. So my center would be positive 6 and a negative 5. And my radius would be 6.